Hi, I'm Steve from the Stonecrafting Workshop. Angle grinders generally are screaming, psychopathic machines that scream through stone and steel, which is why tradesmen like me really love them. But sometimes you want something that's a little more subtle, a little more controllable, but still doing a similar job. Which is why I decided to buy this. It's the Parkside cordless angle grinder. I don't expect it to be as fast or as powerful as a mains powered angle grinder, but I do have a use for it, a very specific use for it, which you'll be seeing in later videos, I hope. So let's open the box, have a look at what it is and how it all goes together, and then I'll try it on various materials and tell you what I think of it. So, like all Parkside tools, it comes in quite a nice sturdy plastic carry case, and when you open it up there's a book of words giving you the instructions for its use and the various parts. And the machine comes fitted with a carborundum steel cutting blade, and when you first get it you'll need to tighten this up because it's only on there finger tight. Let's have a quick look at the tool. It also comes with a handle, and inside the handle is the spanner for removing the blades. And in fact, if you tap that home, it's in there really firmly, which is pretty good for storage. But we'll explore that a bit later. The first impression of the tool is that it's more substantial than I expected. I thought for the money it would be fairly lightweight. On the top of it you have an on-off switch, which seems a little bit floppy, but that's probably the design. You have a spindle lock so that you can tighten and loosen up the blades, and it locks the spindle while you're doing that. And on the side you have a speed dial, which is something that really interested me and I think is a valuable addition to this particular tool. It's a 20-volt machine and it takes batteries from the Parkside 20-volt team system, and because of that I've already got plenty of batteries and I just couldn't see my way to spending money on more batteries. It's got a top speed of 10,000 revs per minute, which is pretty much in line with 240-volt angle grinders. A lot of those go up to about 11,000 revs per minute, but it's still pretty quick. First of all, let's just tighten up the blade. So to tighten the blade up, you press the spindle lock, put the spanner on the disc and just tighten it, and there you go. As I say, this is a steel cutting disc, and one of the things you'll notice if you're used to using angle grinders is that this is incredibly thin blade. It's only 1mm thick. Most carborundum blades are about 3mm thick. It takes standard 5-inch blades, which is handy. The bore size is 22.3, which is the standard size. I think it's 22.23, something like that. I've got a standard, this is a work safe blade, and it fits on there just the same. But as you can see, it's a much thicker blade. So let's put that back on. It's always safe to change the blades by when you take the battery off. Lock the spindle lock, use the spanner for tightening it up. Fairly straightforward and obvious. The battery fits on the back, and in line with all of this type of battery you simply slide it into place and just tap it and it clicks into place. The handle can be located on the right hand side of the machine or the left hand side of the machine or on the top. I'm going to be cutting like that, so let's put it on the right hand side. And it feels like quite a sturdy handle, and it's got a really good soft grip, which is quite nice. Blade cover is adjustable simply by clicking it round. It has a metal sprung plate with a pin on it that drops into little lugs, so you can spin it round and it sort of locks into place, but that's really easy and convenient. But to enable you to do that, they've made this guard quite deep. But apart from that, it works really well. It means that you can quickly adjust it and change from cutting mode, which would be like that, to grinding mode, which would be like that, and then you'd swap the handle over. The top speed of this machine is 10,000 revs. Let's turn it on. That's it on top speed. One of the good features about this tool, I think, is the speed dial. And if you can turn it right the way down to its lowest setting on 1. And it's now running at 2,500 revs, which is the speed you would normally use for a polisher or a sander. And later on I'll have a quick look and see how easy it is to put a sanding head onto this machine, so it would double as a sander come grinder. So what I'm going to do, I've got a battery on that's fully charged, and I've got another couple already on charge. So I'm going to do a range of tasks cutting different types of metal, and metal rod, stainless steel rod I've got to cut. I'm going to cut the end off of one of my chisels that needs cutting off, and just keep working it on steel and metal until the battery runs out, which will give us a rough guide of the time you have for cutting on the battery. And then I'm going to put a new battery on and put on a stone cutting blade. And the stone cutting blades I've got are these. I bought a set of diamond blades from Lidl while I was in there, and you buy a set of 3 blades, a set of 4 blades for cutting masonry and stone and tile, and I'll try those out and see how it works on stone, and I'll try and get a rough idea of time on that as well. But I have to say that I think when you're buying these cordless tools, it's a bit misleading to think too much about the time that they last and work for. Anyway, let's get on with the test, let's get on with using it, see how we get on, and then we'll have a conclusion at the end of it, and I'll tell you what I think of it. That's the battery overheat cut out. Switch the tool off and leave it for a second. Well, that was really easy, and I'm learning not to put too much weight on it. Quite honestly, this machine is specifically for doing light and small tasks around a workshop. If you're going to be cutting heavy duty metal and what have you, or heavy duty stone work, then you really need to get yourself a proper tool. I'm not saying this isn't a proper tool, but it's designed for lighter use. But that cuts that fine and is quite impressive. Let's try the 10mm stainless steel. That was on 6. Let's put it on 3 just to see. Yeah, it's not happy at that. So let's put the speed up to 6 again. Let's cut the end off this chisel and see what happens. I really have my doubts about doing stuff this heavy with this little angle grinder. Let's be honest, if I was doing this properly I would use a 9-inch angle grinder. But let's see if this works. Again, full speed. Let the machine do the job. Well, that cut that really, really well. Let's clamp that into place and try the grinding tool on it. Right, so I've been playing with this now for the best part of the day, and what do I think of it? Right, first of all, on cutting metal, I cut a variety of metal. I cut copper pipe and stainless steel pipe, and I cut quite a lot of 10mm steel rod, and also sliced through a chisel that was, you know, 22mm steel. And the machine coped with all of that really well. After about 15 minutes, the thermal overload on the battery started to cut in, and it kept stopping, and I got about another 5 minutes out of it. So I reckon you'd have about 20 minutes cutting time cutting steel, with the proviso that you're using one of these very thin carborundum steel cutting blades, because the thinner the blade, the less drag and friction there is when you're using it. And also with the proviso that you don't put too much weight on the machine. I found this machine cut really well and did everything really well. If you actually, took the weight back off of the machine and let the thing run at its speed, let it do its job. On stone, it was a similar story. It worked very well. It cut lots of things. The harder stones like slate and ceramic tiles, I didn't do very well on ceramic tiles, but that's because I didn't read the instructions on this blade. This blade that's supplied with the kit of 4 is supposed to be used wet. On stone, I got about 15 minutes, 14 or 15 minutes of cutting. And I think that's because the diamond blades are thicker, and also I was cutting thicker material. Some of the stone I was cutting was 50mm thick York stone. So you'd expect there to be a much lower cutting time on it. Incidentally, in terms of cutting time, that was on the 2 amp hour battery. This will take the 4 amp hour battery if you have one. And in that case, you'd get pretty much double that time. I was really impressed with the fact that I can also use this as a sander cum polisher, simply by taking the guard off and putting a backing pad on it. The fact the spanner fits in the handle I think is really useful for storage, but I personally wouldn't very often work with it because it's kind of in the way. What do I think about the durability of it, the length of time of cut? Well, a lot of people I think obsess about that when they're buying a cordless tool. How long will it cut for, and how, on one battery charge. With this tool in particular, I think if you're thinking like that, then you ought to go and get yourself a 240 volt or 110 volt version. This is for doing small tasks, that you might need, cutting through a padlock, cutting the head off a bolt, cutting up a little bit of metal. And for that purpose, I think it will work really superbly well. If on the other hand, like me, you want to use it in a more sustained fashion, then you should have several batteries being charged at the time. And in future, when I'm using this tool, the minute the battery thermal cutout kicks into action, I'll simply swap it for one that's on charge or fully charged, and I'll keep working it like that. And if you do that, it's got potential for doing a lot of work throughout the day. There are some things I really like about this tool. The blade guard, the fact that you can reposition it easily from one side to the other, from cutting position to grinding position, I think is really convenient and easy to use. The handle is a nice firm handle. It feels quite strong and it's soft grip, and I never felt my hand was slipping on that at all. I love the speed dial. I love the fact that you can turn it right the way up to 10,000 revs or down to 2,500 revs. That gives you the potential for using this as a sander polisher, as well as a cutter, and as well as a sort of coarse grinder. I like the fact that it takes standard size blades. With the 22.23 bore, it means you can fit any 5-inch blade onto it, or 4-inch or 3-inch, depending on what you're doing. And that's a real convenience. It's nice to handle. It's very convenient to use, and it cuts very well. As I say, if you take the weight off of the machine and allow the speed of the machine and the blade to do its job, it cuts really well. I'm very impressed. What I'm most impressed about is how cheap it is. I think this is really good value for money. This cost me 25 quid from Lidl's, the bare version without a battery. The nearest equivalent is the Ferex angle grinder from Aldi, and that's a 40 volt version, and it's about the same price, but that's not available at the moment. I didn't have the choice of that, and I don't think it has this speed dial. I'll check up on that one day and tell you. The alternative is to go to somewhere like Screwfix, and the cheapest cordless angle grinder on Screwfix is the Erebor at the moment, and that's about 60 quid for the bare model. So 25 quid 60 quid for the error bore. Now I'm quite willing to accept that the error bore might be a better tool, but unless you're absolutely certain that what you need is a cordless angle grinder, I think in terms of value for money, this is almost unbeatable. So, thank you for watching. I hope this review has been useful to you and gives you a few ideas. If it has, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're feeling particularly kind today towards poor old retired stonemasons, please subscribe to my channel. Otherwise, thank you again for watching.